Well, hello there, everybody. Boyd here with you. Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend and hope everybody's doing well out there tonight. Welcome to another live show from our bench here at TrekWorks. I'm going to pop into the comment section here real quick and see who's all with us here tonight. My apologies first off for last week, guys. I was sitting here trying to get the stream going and had some kind of a glitch between the old ciphering box over there and the wires that go out to the World Wide Web. So I spent this week reinstalling the my streaming program and everything, and I tested it a couple times this week and seemed to be okay. It wouldn't connect to the stream for some reason last week, but I'm using a headset this week because I'm going to be over at the other area working on a project for you guys tonight. So hopefully it sounds okay. I'll pop over to the comments here and see how it's sounding. Um, I want to give a shout out to people who are here tonight. We've got let's roll her back up to the top here. We got Spencer Wolf. We got Kenny with Sci-Fi Model. No, that's not Kenny. HobbyLink International, Kenny, and then Sci-Fi Model Shop. How's that move going, Kenny? Hope you're getting past that nightmare. We've been living here for almost 30 years. It would be crazy for us to move. I can't imagine what it'd be like. Got GB's Model Zone, Rick Berger, Federation Shipyard, Modeler X, Dan Harris. Leona Timber Company, one of the old schoolers. Good to see you here tonight, buddy. Richard Steller. Scott, Aussie Trekkie. Nice to see you tonight, buddy. Dingo Z. Omar. PJC 2.0. Mark Shu. Let's see. The Captain. Mark Buchholz. Phil Usagi. Outsider 238. Dennis, Federation Shipyard. Nice to see you, Dennis. Eric Hawkins, the Kit Bash Kid. Nice to see you tonight, Eric. American Legend. Jason Yates. Colt 1911. Tagamo, nice to see you, Tag. Great job on your Hulk, by the way, buddy. I saw that the other day. Beautiful work on that, paint work on that figure. I got a long way to go before I'll get to that level. Dak 75. Chris Farrell. Gene Levine. James Schulenberg. Canadian Starships. J Hunt 5440. Donald Parkhurst. Sean Rowe, Bill Hilberry, Moore Bassman. Great to see everyone here tonight. So yeah, guys, I'm just going to do our usual casual hangout tonight. I actually had prepared, one of the things that I'm going to do on the show is during the week, a lot of modeling questions come in via email, and some of them are, kind of short. I can answer them pretty quick. But some of them are like, a whole paragraph long, and I just really don't have that much time to type, an answer that might take me an hour to type it out because I'm a really slow typer and I actually hate typing. So I'm going to start taking those whenever I get them, and I'm going to go over those at the beginning of the show every week. It'll be a little bit of a delay to get things started, but I think it's important to answer people's questions whenever I can. The one that came in last week, unfortunately, I lost it. I know I didn't delete it off of my email, but I went through it just a little while before I started the show and couldn't find it. Now, whoever you were, I can't even remember your name. You asked me a bunch of questions about the TOS Enterprise. If you're watching tonight, maybe say something about it or, resend that email, and I'll go through it next week, I promise. So for you guys out there that are watching and you have a question, of course, I'll answer any questions in here when we're live, but if it comes in during the week or whatever, I'll try to save it and go over that at the beginning of the show here. Let me pop over to my other camera real quick and show you what we got on the bench tonight. Tonight I'm working on this Mobius Classic Original Series Battlestar Galactica. This is another client job. I've been kind of fiddling around with this for a little while, trying to figure everything out. Now, I'm going to be doing something on this that's going to be a little bit challenging. I'm pretty sure I can pull it off, but what I'm going to be doing is tonight what I'm going to be working with is some of the Photo-Etch. There's a Photo-Etch set out there from Paragraphics that details out the landing bays in the ship, you know, where the Vipers come and go. And my client wanted to have that effect on the floor, you know, where you see the sequencing lights, you know, that like an aircraft landing strip has on it. So the Photo-Etch set gives you the slots cut in the floor. And I've got a control board from Ralph at Tenna Controls to actually make that effect. The whole question is going to be is whether I'll be able to get all the wires into the, you know, you can see on the little legs right there on the top part of the hull that you have to extend some wiring through that down into the landing bay and then, of course, down underneath of the floor. I'm pretty sure I did a little bit of fiddling around, testing on it and everything, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get all the wiring in there. But what I'm going to be working on tonight is we've got the raw Photo-Etch. I just got the set in a while ago. So I'm going to be taking that out, and tonight I'm going to be going through and showing you what I do to work with Photo-Etch. I've got some decals from Jerry at HDA Model Works for this particular Photo-Etch set that details out the floor and the side walls and everything. That way I don't have to paint it all, but we do have to paint the brass first, so I'm going to have to prime it. And then what I like to do is whenever I'm using those decals to overlay on top of anything, I just use regular white paint. That way it shows up the colors nice and bright on the decal and doesn't make them look washed out or whatever. So what we've got to do tonight is get the Photo-Etch stuff out, get it ready, get it primed, get it painted, and hopefully I'll get it dry. You know, I'm going to use regular craft paints like I have been. I'll use my heat gun, so hopefully we can speed things up here a little bit. And I'll get those prepared, and we'll go ahead and lay it on the decals. We'll get them bent, and I'm not gonna promise on the bending part because once I lay the decals on there, it might have to sit a little while before I can start bending, or the decals might mess up. But we'll see. If I can do it, I'll do it. We'll get those things formed up. This is going to be a project you're going to see for probably the next couple episodes on the show because I want to show you guys how this turns out. Of course, you'll get to see the ship done on my regular channel, but I want to show you guys, you know, how the electronic side of it goes. A fun little project. Another reason to show some of the new people out there how to work with one of the Tenna Controls boards and how to set it up, you know, from scratch. So it's a custom-made board from Ralph. He doesn't actually sell this one, I don't think, but I had him just do a basic chaser circuit. So I'm going to just take a really quick break. I'm going to go and get my airbrush set up, get everything ready to go, get the heat gun out, get everything set up. It'll take me a minute or two, and then we'll be back over there at the bench. Hopefully the sound is okay. I haven't heard anything bad, so hopefully it's not too bad. I know it doesn't sound as good as the other mic. I've also got the AC on in here, so hopefully it's not picking that up too bad. So let me take a quick break, everybody. We'll come back, and we'll be working on the Battlestar Galactica. More of the same. It's just going to be, you know, regular hanging out here and working on models, guys. Not a really, you know, structured show, but like I said, I do want to have that little Q&A at the beginning if questions come in during the week, and I can get that out of the way. So if you have any questions, and they're really important questions that you want to ask me specifically, try to save them till towards the end of the show, guys, because what I'll do is I'm going to set up about a 15-minute session here at the end to go on and look at the actual comments and see what you guys are asking. Hopefully if there's any other questions, other people in here can answer them. Because I can't see your comments when I'm over at the other bench. I won't be able to see this screen. So, okay, well, that said, I'll be right back, everybody. Hang on. Okay, you guys, I'm back with you again. Just checking to make sure my microphone's turned back on so I'm not talking to myself for an hour. And it looks like we're ready to go. So I'm going to squeeze in over here next to the, get past my camera and get in here and start doing some work. I'll have to figure out a way where I can get another monitor over here or something so I can see what's going on. But this area over here is kind of what I use for my painting and everything. So what you can see in front of you is we have the Photo-Etch set from Paragraphics. This is the kit for the Battlestar. It's really nice. Always, you know, good quality from Paragraphics like usual. Get a lot of detail. Here's a really nice set of decals that is available through Jerry at HD Modelworks. He didn't custom make these for me. These are actually available on his website. And it's really nice because you can see you got all the detail here that saves you all that painting. And there's no way, you know, there's no detail on these parts at all. They're just flat pieces of brass. So like you'd have a heck of a time trying to hand paint all that on there. I'm not sure if it's completely accurate or not, but it doesn't really matter. The openings that you see inside of the landing bays on this ship are super tiny. I mean, it's like the size of a dime, the width of a dime, I should say, and a really narrow slit, so you can't see a whole lot in there. And basically, what this does, let me grab the one of the landing bays. I've been working on this a while, fiddling around with it. I've been drilling a lot of holes out on it here and there for fiber optics. And we have the landing bay here, so I'm going to hold this up to the camera. You can basically see right here how small this is going to be, judging by my hand. That's the opening you're going to be dealing with. So this all goes inside of here. It goes in about that far. What it does is it's a forced perspective view, so it's not really the entire length of this thing. It kind of trails off in the distance. You know, it's kind of an old Hollywood movie trick. So we're going to do, you know, just that basic part. We're going to do it on both sides. So what I was talking to you guys about during the last show when I talked about this a little bit, you can see right here, we've got the little slots on the floor for the chaser lights, you know, and you can see they extend all the way back like that. And that's the rear wall that actually will be bent upward, you know, and then you have the top that folds over that makes the ceiling and the sides. Now I'm going to have to do something on the top here because I didn't realize when I looked at this that this was completely enclosed, and we obviously have to have some kind of ceiling lights. Now what I've done is I've already put in a strip of LED lighting here that I was going to use for the ceiling. So I've got to figure out a way either to drill some holes or whatever. So that's probably the first thing that I'm going to need to do here because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to get all this painted and everything and then find out I'm going to be marring it all up trying to drill and my drill's, you know, moving all over the place, screwing it up. So I'm going to get these cut out and then we're going to try to drill. I'm going to try to drill a couple holes here in the top. Or I might just take a pair of scissors and cut a little strip in here. That might work better. Because I kind of want a little, I don't want little dots of light. I want a kind of constant strip of light. I'm going to have to kind of look at this as we go. One of the things I want to do is grab my peepers here before I get started so I can see what I'm doing. Let me get those. So that's the plan in a nutshell, guys. You know, the best laid plans, as they say. We'll see if we have to deviate from that at all here. But I've been kind of running this through my head. I like to do this whenever I plan this stuff out. I'll have a model like this coming up and I'll think about it off and on and I'll come back to it and kind of plan everything out in my head and make little notes and everything. And hopefully it, you know, works when I come to actually getting around to doing it. So let's get this cut out. Now on Photo-Etch, you know, you can use your little, I got this piece of hard ceramic down here because I'll, you know, on some of the really small stuff I'll have to cut that out with this knife. But if I can get in there with this pair of scissors, that's the way I like to do it. It's a lot easier and it works pretty good. Sometimes you can't make turns and stuff though, but we'll see what we can do here. Just getting the little nubs cut away. Now one thing I've been, you know, I don't do a lot of Photo-Etch work. I do some, not nearly as much as some of the guys out there that do the other, you know, there's a lot of I have the big Photo-Etch kit for that Star Destroyer that I'm working with. Now that's a green strawberry set. This is Paragraphics. I've noticed on the green strawberry that the sometimes, not on all of them, because I got a couple different sets of their stuff for different models, but I've noticed on some of their stuff that the fold lines are not scribed very well. In other words, when you try to bend this stuff, it won't bend really clean. Like I've never had a problem with any of the Paragraphics. It always, you know, bends really well and everything. So I was working on some of the stuff for the Star Destroyer, and there's a ton of Photo-Etch for that. And I started having trouble bending some of the stuff, so I kind of stopped on that model, if you guys have been wondering what's up with that one. I'm going to have to go out and buy a couple of Photo-Etch bending tools. I never did buy any of those. I used to use, like, you know, a razor blade or two razor blades. You know, you lay one razor blade down, like for example, you'd lay it across right here flat, and then you take the other razor blade and scrape underneath of it and fold it like that. That works pretty good, but some of the parts on that set for the Star Destroyer are all kind of weird different sizes, and some of them are big too. They're like a lot wider than a razor blade, so I'd only be able to catch part of it. I started trying to bend this one part for the I think it's the, you know, the big shuttle bay that's underneath the bottom of the ship, the one that we see Princess Leia's ship get caught up in there at the beginning. It wasn't bending right, so rather than putting a wrinkle in it and ruining it, I just decided to stop. So if you guys try to remember what I was mentioning there, and at the end of the when we get to the chat session here at the end, if you guys have any suggestions about good Photo-Etch bending tools, I'd be glad to hear them, and I'll certainly take your advice. And, you know, like I said, a lot of guys, now I know Scott, Aussie Trekkie's here tonight. He works with a lot of Photo-Etch. Maybe he's got an idea of what kind of tool to get, because he does a lot of the ships and everything. Speaking of Photo-Etch, I told you I really don't like working with it. You know, if you guys caught my video the other day on the Titanic upgrade set, man, you talk about Photo-Etch, wow. I'll be dreaming Photo-Etch for a year working on that, but it's all good. It's all worth it. In the end, that model, you know, a couple of the other ships I built, I didn't do all the Photo-Etch stuff. I was still happy with how they turned out, like the Bismarck and the Hood and a couple other ones that I did, but on that Titanic, I'm going to go all out on that model. It's an expensive model, but it's also like one of my very favorite subjects, and at that scale, it's a little bit bigger, so it shouldn't be too difficult. So we've got our first little guy out here. I'm going to get my little Dremel tool here and get rid of these little nubs. That's another little trick that I do. Some people will cut them off. If I can get to them, I'll take this little sanding drum and sand them off. It's a lot quicker, and it works really clean. Sometimes they're in a spot where you can't get to them though, but these look like they're all kind of out in the open, so I should be able to get them. Put it on the lowest speed and real gentle. You want to make sure you go with the rotation, not against it, otherwise you're going to jam up against it and it's going to start skipping, you know, and cause all kind of problems. So these are coming right off. Yeah, there's one in that corner that's going to be hard to get to. Let's get down here. Drinking too much cola before the show again. Now my hand's a little shaky. Okay. All right, so most of those are gone. Let's see if we can get this little guy here in the corner with the hobby knife. Might need to put a new blade on. I'm breaking my own rule here. Whenever I work with this stuff, it's always a good idea to use a brand new blade. This one's probably a little bit worn out. Yeah, it's not cutting out. Let me grab a new blade real quick. So yeah, Photo-Etch can be a joy because it's gorgeous when you finish it, but it can be really something else when you're working on it. I'm also going to show you tonight using a little bit of that. You guys seem to really enjoy, or that Solarez stuff was a smash hit with you guys. So we are going to be using a little bit of the Solarez again tonight, because that's what I glue my brass together with. It works fantastic on brass. It sticks to it really, really good, and it's not like CA where you get, you you can make a mess. Because if you get any a little bit too extra before you before you go ahead and use the UV light on it, you can clean it up a little bit, because it will not dry until you hit it with that light. So yeah, it works really good for photo etch. Sticks to that brass like crazy. Yeah, we got one on the end there that I think we can get with the Super Buzz-O-Matic here. A little bit of one sticking out there. Okay. All right. Now this stuff doesn't allow you to do too many bends. I'd like to test bend it and see how this is going to line up. But I'm still thinking about my ceiling here and what I want to do with the lights, because once I make a commitment, that's the way it's going to be. Let's try it. Bend it down. Again, this paragraphic stuff, you can see it's bending at a perfect, right on the line like it should. I really like that. Okay, so this one's the floor. And then we got our sides. And I guess I was thinking that would come all the way to the back, but I guess it doesn't. Let me see how, let me grab our landing bay thing here again. Pretty sure this is the end we want to work with, just to get an idea of how. Okay, that sits down in there like that. Pop out the instructions real quick and see if they got any pretty pictures. Okay. I was thinking originally that this came all the way, towards the end, but it looks like it doesn't, so that's going to put me kind of a weird situation here, and it's also not leaving a whole lot of room underneath for lighting. And I think there's just enough to get some lighting in there. Now, I think what I'm going to do, you can see that in the center of this thing, it has a little dip to it. It's got a little peak to it there, which leaves just a tiny little gap. Now, what I was already thinking about here, let me see if I can unbend this just enough, was that I knew I wasn't going to be able to put an SMD or whatever in every single one of these slots, right? Like it first of all, it would take 30 of them to do it. So what I was thinking about doing was I was originally thinking about doing both sides, but what I'm thinking about here now might work pretty good. If I put like maybe 4 of them, just kind of look at my spacing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then maybe 5 and 6 up on the rear wall. Yeah, so if I put like 4 of them right here on the floor in the center, right? And what I'll do is I'm going to get a piece of clear plastic. I've got that really thin sheet styrene and clear. I'll glue that on the bottom of this. I'll diffuse it, and then I think what will happen is it'll give a pretty decent effect. Is this notch where that's supposed to go? Or is it the... Let me see here. They're telling you to... What are they saying here? Okay, yeah, they don't talk about modifying anything, but you notice here that they don't, on this part, they don't show this big, huge, you know, pin locator hole right here, right in the middle of where you're trying to do all your work. I don't know if you're supposed to remove that, but they got a notch in it right here. I'm not sure if that's supposed to, I think, I think it goes forward to that. I think it really does. I think it comes out about this far. Which is weird because I don't know why they have that notch in there if it doesn't. Okay. So, getting back to what I was thinking. If I put 4 of them down here, spaced apart a little bit, you will get, I think Ralph gave me a 6 output on the board, so we'll get 6 individual, you know, 1, 2, 3, you know, when they do the sequencing. So I think if I do 4 of them here and then 2 of them on this wall here, we should get a, you know, you'll get the effect of seeing the movement is all I'm really trying to do. We're not going to be able to put, like I said, every single one in there. It just would be insane. I haven't seen anybody, there might be a hidden video out there somewhere, but I actually looked on YouTube. I couldn't find anybody that actually tried to do this before. I've seen the Photo-Etched used, but I haven't seen anybody try to put this kind of lighting in like that. So maybe that's why they didn't, because it's a real pain in the butt. But we'll give it a go here. So, but all we're worried about tonight, I have the whole week to kind of think about that now that I see what it's looking like. But what we're dealing with tonight is mainly getting these things ready to go. Now you see I've got my overhead lights here. So let me get this other one folded. Hang in there, baby. We're going to fold you a couple times. Okay, I get that kind of reasonably close. And these side walls will come down. I don't need to bend them, I don't think, but I'm mainly just trying to figure out how much room I got. Probably about the same as I had down there. So I should be okay. I should have just enough room. So now what to figure out as far as this overhead lighting goes, I'm really considering whether I want to cut that or I want to drill it. If I cut it, it's going to be okay. You know, one long strip of light is what I really want there. I don't really want individual round ones, but we may have to compromise on that because I'm really not sure if I want to cut this or not. This is what you get to see with the live show, guys, is where you don't get to see on some of the, you know, if you sit down and try to shoot this kind of stuff on a regular video, it just eats up a ton of time and a ton of editing, a ton of computer, you know, prepping the file and all that. So this is cool that we can actually sit and, you know, this is real world modeling here where you're dealing with this kind of stuff, especially on something that we haven't tried before. So I think, man, it's kind of a coin toss here. I'm leaning towards cutting it. I think I'm going to cut it, guys. So let me get her bent back out here a little bit. And what I'm going to do is grab a couple pieces of tape so I can use that as a guide to cut a straight line. Now, if worse comes to worse, and I wind up, you know, screwing up this upper part here, I'm not too worried because I can use the rest of this. The part I really don't want to screw up is the bottom. That's where all my lighting's going to be. Because I can replace this roof with a piece of styrene if I have to. But let me see how wide I want to make this. Try that. Take a gander at it here. That's probably too wide. Okay, I'm going to use these right where these little V's come together. I'm going to use that as a reference. So let's make this quite a bit narrower. Okay. Okay, I'm going to be able to cut this way fine, but when I get down to this part right here, cutting that, it's going to be, cutting across is going to be fun. Oh well, we'll go for it. I'm going to go with that, so let's get her unstuck here. Now I keep this really sharp pair of stainless steel scissors here for this very thing, because it'll cut this stuff like butter. Okay. We're committed now, guys. No going back. Okay, that's about as far as I want it to go. Now if I can somehow, maybe if I can make sure I get these equal length. You can see I'm a little bit short on this side. Let's see if I start bending it here. If she'll cooperate and break off for me after about 30 reps. Probably not, but yeah, I'm not getting a sharp enough line there to make it. Come on. Show us some love. I can feel it getting weaker, but not making much progress yet. Let's see what happens here. It's starting to get pretty weak. Maybe if I can get it thin enough, I can actually cut it with the hobby knife. We'll see. Yeah, brass is known for being resilient. In this case, it's living up to its name. Okay. Let me try bending it the other way. Not liking doing it this way, but so anyways, I hope you guys are all working on something, and we'll maybe talk about that a little bit at the end, see what everybody's working on. Down here in Texas, they opened up a lot of the state this week, so I guess our restaurants are partly back in operation with limited capacity. I don't think they made a decision on movie theaters and stuff like that yet. Oh, there we go. But it came off crooked, like I kind of thought it would. So we're still going to have to deal with it here. Man, let me see. Let's see if I can get in here with this thing. Nope, that's not going to work. This is going to be a pain in the butt. Just can't get in there. I mean, we're almost there. We just got a little, you can see where it didn't break off, you know, straight across. It made kind of an angle. Man, I just don't know what to do with this. Yeah, it's not going to cut it. I didn't think it would. If I scribe it a few times. That's why I love working with styrene. Styrene, you can literally like do anything you want with it. This doesn't have to be perfect. It's the ceiling, and it's going to be way back in there anyway. But you know, I want it to look decent. Glad I decided to mess with all this before we put the decals on, because I can tell you right now we would have been really screwing those up doing all this handling. All right, I got one idea here. I'm going to try to use my Dremel tool with a little knurling tip on it and see what that might do. Get that out here. So yeah, you can tell things have opened up here a little bit because there's all of a sudden kind of the highways and streets have gone from being kind of a ghost town to like being back to pretty busy again. Hope you guys are in states that are still locked down. I hope you're keeping your sanity, and I see people are starting to get a little antsy in different parts of the country. It's got to be frustrating for some, especially if they see their whole life savings going up in smoke. Really a shame. If I can get this cleaned up just a little bit, I'll be happy. I'm not going to shoot for perfection, because like I said, we're not going to be able to really see this. And as long as I get the shape of it kind of right, because I think what I'm going to do is I might put, I'm going to have to put some kind of lens on this too, to diffuse the light. And if I want to, I can put it on the bottom. I can put it on this side and hide some of that, because I'll paint it. I'll paint everything except the little strip of light, or strip of clear where the light will come through. And you won't be able to see that anyway. But I want the shape of it to be right so it doesn't leave some kind of like weird shadow on the floor. And that's definitely better. I'm going to call that good enough, guys. That actually worked. It's not perfectly square, but you're not going to be able to tell. That's going to be way in the back. So, all right, we were successful there to a degree anyway. Got a little bit of bendage going on here I didn't want, but I'll straighten that back out. Get rid of our tape now. Ooh, oh, that wasn't good. Bent her too many times. So the back wall just separated. Like I said, too much handling. That was the one thing when I was thinking about on this whole thing that I was, I had been thinking about what I was going to do with those lights, because when I ordered this set, I thought that there would be, accommodation for that. But when I got the set, I realized there wasn't. And all this time I've been thinking, well, when I finally get to that, I'm gonna have to deal with it. And we are. Now, just what happened is no big deal. We'll glue it back together with our solar res, and then we're gonna light block it and everything. So that's not a big deal. Like I said, the best laid plans, guys. Being a modeler, you got to be adaptive. Adapt and overcome, and not get mad about it. That's the whole key. Whenever I get to a point where something's really bothering me like that, I simply put it down and walk away. And it seems to, a lot of times, like I'm sure you guys have found out the same thing, 99% of the time it'll solve itself almost. You come back next day or whatever, a week later, the frustration's gone. You start with a new, kind of open mind, and all of a sudden a light bulb goes off and you figure it out. Okay, so that's our ceiling. All right, we got the back wall here. I'm gonna, yeah, it went this way. Okay, so we're gonna bend this back up, and hopefully she'll stay in one piece. Okay, and just kind of take a look at that. All right. So that's pretty good. Now we can lay this in here and kind of look again. But yeah, I think there's just enough room underneath there where the SMDs are going to fit. I'll use 0805 white SMDs, 4 of them, and then 2 of them glued to the back wall here. So it kind of looks like it trails off. And then there's enough of a gap all the way to the edges, even if I put a piece of clear in here, that's going to work. I've got some really super thin clear sheet, so that'll work. Diffuse that, and then what'll happen is you're going to see, you know, they both sides light in the same at the same time anyway. You know, it just makes 2 rows that are exactly the same. So one in the middle is going to light them, you know, like boom, 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 like that. And again, it's not going to be every single one. If somebody wants to, like, you know, put an SMD in every one of them, you go for it, buddy. But for me, I'll be happy with just, you know, this was something that I talked to my client about, and he's not dead set on it. He wanted the Photo-Etch detail in there, but the lighting idea was something I said, hey, I'll do it if I can, but if, you know, if I can't, we don't want to do something that's going to look horrible or, you know, not work out. So, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think it's going to work out. Okay, so let's move along. I'm going to have to repeat that whole thing on this side and obviously use lessons I've learned here on what to do different this time. You guys don't need to see that because that's just, you know, repeating it. I want to take you through the process of what I'm doing here. So next we're going to move to getting these painted and getting them prepped and ready to take the decals. So I'll go ahead and fold this guy back down one more time. I think he's good for one more fold. Get some tape to hold this stuff down. Nice thing about brass is that you don't have to light block it. You only have to paint the top side, or the side you're going to see. But if you want to paint the back, you can. That's totally up to you. So let's get these primed first. We'll give them a little heat action here, and that'll help them dry a little bit quicker. Don't need these right now. I like to kind of pick up whenever I'm done with certain things so I don't get too cluttered. Let me get this out of the way, and we'll grab our primer. Just stepping by the screen here when I'm grabbing stuff and I can see your comments. Somebody's asking about annealing. On something like this, I don't anneal it when it's just going to be flat and it's already got the bends in it. You could see every piece that I bent, it stayed right where it's supposed to be. Mainly when I worry about annealing something is if you're going to make curves and stuff like that. The curves, you know, like say this whole piece right here was going to be curved and have to stay that way all on its own, you know, like not glued or attached to something that will hold its shape. Yeah, then I'll definitely anneal it, because that, you know, you can't get the brand, it'll still stay springy unless you do that. But when it's going to be flat like this and the, you know, our bend marks are already there, you don't really need to anneal that. Some people might disagree and they go ahead and anneal everything, but I mean, this little propane bottle costs about, it ain't cheap anymore. It's like, this is what I use right here. This thing's about 25 bucks now. So I try to save that as much as possible. Only use it when I need to. So yeah, in this case we don't need to, but yeah, annealing is definitely a must if you're going to shape parts. For example, I'll just give you a quick one I can think of is going to be the crow's nest on that Titanic. That whole front part of that brass piece that forms that curve at the front of that thing is going to need to be annealed, because it's going to have to sit there all on its own, and it doesn't look like there's any support in there for it. Okay, so we got get our primer here. Get the heat gun ready. I think next time I'm definitely going to put, I'm still getting used to this again, guys. I'm setting everything up here. I've got 2 more cameras that I ordered. I got a hub, and I'm going to mount 2 cameras permanently over here. Right now I'm just on a stand, and I'd rather have it on the other side because it's really in my way tonight, but I'll get that worked out. That's not for you guys to worry about. Okay, this is the latest primer I'm using too, guys. This is the Duplicolor Automotive Primer. It's called 2-in-1. It's a filler and sandable primer. I was using another brand of Duplicolor. I don't have the old can here, but it was really weird. It was their regular automotive primer, and the last 2 cans of it that I got, it's almost like they changed the formula, which they do that from time to time, because I started noticing that it all of a sudden didn't want to dry very well. And what I look for in a good primer is how well it sands. And you'll find that acrylic-based primers don't really want to sand very well. Lacquer is slowly being phased out, unfortunately, but lacquer-based primer is the best kind of primer you can use for this type of stuff. For a car, you want to go with, a really hard type primer like acrylic-based or whatever, and you're using a lot more powerful sanding tools on that. But on something like this, where you don't want a whole lot of buildup and all that, it's really important that it sands really good. And primer that has a lot of acrylic in it or is acrylic based, it tends to be really hard. And you can always tell a good primer when you sand it. It comes off as a nice powder when you sand it. Where the harder type stuff, you'll notice that it kind of tends to come off kind of chunky almost, or doesn't want to sand hardly at all. It takes a lot of effort. Well, this primer that I was using, it started getting that way. Like I don't know, I didn't check the can, but they might have switched over to acrylic. And also, it didn't dry very well. It took a long time, and it seemed to be very thin, where I had to put several coats on it to get the same effect. So I went over there to the same place I get my stuff, regular auto parts store, and looked around to see what they had, and they had this stuff. Now, I've been using this now for probably about 3 months, and I really like it. It's back to what the original stuff used to be. It sands really good. It covers really good. The only difference is it's quite a bit darker shade of gray. It's, I'm used to a kind of a light dove gray. This is almost like a battleship gray kind of color. But the color doesn't make any difference. You're going to paint over it anyway. So I just thought I'd show that to you. We're going to shake it up real good. That's another key to, with primers, you got to shake the heck out of it, because otherwise what happens when you get down near the bottom of the can, the chunks and the crud starts coming out. So what I'm going to do, just for, probably don't really need to, but just for the heck of it, something I kind of always do on brass, I'm going to scuff it here with my steel wool. Just give something there for that stuff to stick to. Can't really do that on super small, delicate parts. You can do it, like, if you're going to do that, I should have been smarter, but you want to do that when they're, like right now, if you're going to do that when they're all the parts are still on the sheet here, and you can scuff over it and you're not going to bend or destroy anything. So I should have done that first, but that's all right. And I can see the little sand marks on it now, so that's all we want. We don't want it to be 180 grit or anything like that. And then I'm going to blow off this dust. All right, we're ready to hit this with some primer. Go ahead and do that. Like I said, this stuff covers really good. It's not going to go too crazy. It is really dark colored though. Definitely a dark gray. Yeah, I asked the rep up there at the store about the other primer, and he, of course, those guys that work at the auto store, they don't know anything about it. They're like, well, we just got it in. We don't know, they don't know what Duplicolor does. So it's pretty much the same price. So at least it didn't, the price didn't go way up on it. So that's good. Nice thing about brass too is you can heat it. You don't have to worry about melting it. Yeah, that primer's already just about dry. Put on a really thin coat and then do another one. I'm seeing something here though. Is this a piece of something stuck on there? Yeah. Got rid of that. Okay. That's plenty. We'll get our primer out of the picture here, and I'm going to use some paint now, some white paint. I've got that right here. Good old craft acrylic paints again. This is what I'm using. This is the Delta Ceram Coat, regular white, nothing fancy. People have been asking me a lot about that paint too. I buy this stuff online at Hobby Lobby online. I don't go to their store to buy it. Well, of course we can't right now. The store's closed, but hopefully they'll be reopening again pretty soon. I like having them open when I need to run over there and get something quick, but I usually order everything because I get it like the next day. Now they have a sale on this stuff. I don't know if it's a permanent sale, but if you go over there and look at hobbylobby.com, you can, I think these are like a little over $1 a piece in the store. I've been getting these for 59 cents a bottle. So I mean, you cannot beat that, guys. I mean, that's too cheap to believe, and a real bargain because, you know, like I said, I'm absolutely hooked on this paint. I absolutely love it. I haven't had any problem with it. It works great. That little California Kid car that I just finished, that was all done with craft paints. Well, the seal coat on top, the gloss coat, of course, was automotive clear, but that whole entire model was painted with craft paints. I even used a bunch of their metallics, you know, for the silver, you know, and gunmetal color of the transmission, and they got some great colors. They have a massive selection. When I told you I figured out the hull color for the Enterprise with the heather gray and the jade green, I bought like 20 bottles of each at 59 cents a bottle. So I'm set for painting my Enterprise client work here for like the next year. And I'm telling you, that's a big a shout out again to Chris Cortell. I don't want to steal his thunder on that. He's the guy that should get the credit. He's been promoting craft paints for a long time on his channel. If anybody here tonight is not subscribed to Classic Plastic 101, do yourself a favor and find him on YouTube and subscribe. Chris is not only a fantastic modeler, but he's really down to earth. He has an excellent way of explaining things, and he shows you how to do things, you know, economically, which is really important, but just real simple, really common sense ways to do modeling, which I'm a big fan of. I try to maintain that same philosophy here. And I told Chris if I ever see him in person, I owe him a steak dinner, and I'll keep my word on that because he saved me a ton of money. I mean, I was using those Speedsecker paints, and I still will use them. Like on the big Enterprise, I'm going to use a Speedsecker because that's kind of like a, you know, that's such a huge model and everything. And that'll limit it to, you know, kind of really special projects like that. But this general type stuff, he's saving me a ton of money because, you know, I would probably have about $30 or $40 worth of paint alone in one of the Enterprise models that I would build by the time I painted the hull and mixed up all the little colors. Now, I mean, we're talking substantial savings. So do yourself a favor and give the craft acrylic paints a try. I'm going to get my strainer right here and strain this paint before I put it in the airbrush. But getting back to Chris Cortell, yeah, his YouTube channel is Classic Plastic 101. Check him out on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel. You will not be disappointed. Chris is a really cool guy. He builds almost anything under the sun. You never know what you might see on his channel. And he follows through all of his builds and passes on a lot of great tips along the way. The craft acrylic paints was one of them that I picked up over there. And another really cool one I remember was I was doing some car build, and I wanted to have, you know, it was a kit that came with, now this is what I want to show you right here, guys, when I'm talking about how important it is to strain this. If I would have put this the way it was, and I already reduced it with water, if I would have poured that straight into my gun, I don't know if my camera will focus for you, but can you guys see that glob of crud that's in there right now? And that's a new bottle of paint. That was paint that was, you know, I bought probably a month ago. But even high quality paint, or I don't want to say this stuff's not high quality, but expensive paint will have that stuff in it. It just happens from sitting or whatever. And if you don't strain it, that's 90% of the problem why you're having trouble spraying with your airbrush. It's not that you don't have it thinned enough. Have you ever had that happen where you start spraying, it seems good, and then right in the middle of it just stops and it refuses to spray anymore, or it sputters really bad? That's what it is. You got a chunk of stuff in your paint. So do yourself a favor and strain that stuff. And you'll be much happier. Okay, and then don't make sure you throw away the other cup, like I almost did the wrong thing and threw away our good cup and kept the bad one. Throw away the cup that you just had the original paint in, and then make sure you got your new cup there. All right, we're ready to load the airbrush up. Of course, a lot of people here, I'm just again glancing at the comments. A lot of people here have a YouTube channel. So yeah, you guys need to talk to each other and help each other out. Subscribe to each other's channels. Don't be too cliquey, guys. Sometimes these people in this hobby tend to be kind of cliquey, and they only watch one person and not watch somebody else. But everybody out there is doing a really good job. There's knowledge from everybody. So share the love, man. Spread it around. That's what this hobby's all about. Okay. Now we're ready to lay down some white. And this doesn't have to be pretty, but we do want it to be reasonably smooth, so I'm going to just start off here and lightly dust this on like I always do. Real fine coat to start with. Let her settle down a little bit. The whole purpose of this is just to lighten it up a little bit. If this primer was a little bit lighter, I probably wouldn't worry about it. I'd put the decal on it, but it's mighty dark, so I think it may cause a hassle with our decal, darkening it up too much. Looking good. Oh, piece of dust on there. I was out here, I just finished up a couple of projects and was out here earlier this week vacuuming and blowing dust all over the place, and now it's going to take a couple of days to get rid of it all. And the beauty of this is it dries so fast. I can see a piece of dust, kind of almost like a hair that's stuck right there. And if that was regular paint, I'd be really ticked off right now because it'd be stuck in there until it's dry, and you're waiting a whole day, for your enamel or whatever, which I don't use any kind of enamels anymore. Enamels are gone the way of the dinosaur. They have that bad habit of, cracking and weathering when they get old too. Definitely go with acrylics. They'll last forever. Okay, so when I dry this part here is looking pretty good. I'm almost done with it. I think we'll call that a day on that one. But when this gets dry, just another second or two here, you'll see what I mean by the beauty of this paint. It gets so dry so fast, I can take my finger and go like this, and I just wipe that piece of hair right off of there. It's gone. That would have been totally stuck in your paint with that other kind of paint. May have left a tiny little mark, so just hit it again really quick and it's gone. Wonderful. I love this paint. Did I say I like this paint? I really like this paint. When you heat it up, it smells like latex. House paint. Okay, we'll just dry these real quick again, and then we're going to seal it with some clear. Because as I mentioned, you got to seal this stuff before you put any kind of decals on it. The water will stain it. It'll sort of reactivate it, you know, so you got to seal it, which is always a good idea anyway for decals. You always put down a gloss coat usually. Let me show you what I'm using for that. My latest and greatest. I think I've showed you this before, but you know, there might be some people here who haven't seen it yet. This is what I'm using for my clear coat when I want a matte or semi-dull finish. This is Duplicolor matte clear, but if you notice, it's for wheels. Don't ask me why, but I went and bought a can of their regular matte clear, and I hated it. It splattered really bad when you sprayed it. It had a rough, you know, texture to it when it dried. I just didn't like it at all. You know, we're always searching for people that do a lot of modeling are always searching for this. They're searching for different types of clears, and you know, especially if you're going to do a matte or a dull finish, you know, there's not a lot of different products available. I mean, there's the stuff from Rust-Oleum, which I absolutely hate that stuff. There's what's the other brand? Oh, I've got a graveyard full of these things. Valspar. This stuff. Don't even waste your money, guys. This stuff was total crap. It just dries like sandpaper. It's horrible. All that'll do is attract massive amount of dust on your model. But this stuff, it's great. It gives what I would call an in-between totally dull and gloss coat. You know, it's a satin. It's not glossy. It won't reflect, you know, like light like a pure gloss will. And I'm using this as a seal coat on the 350 Enterprises I'm doing now, and I think it gives just the right look on the outer hull, where the hull is not completely flat and dull. It has just a little bit of a sheen on it, you know, and it dries really fast. It sprays really good. I've noticed really good consistency. I've probably gone through about a case of this stuff so far. It seems to be, you know, it seems to be stable. It doesn't react with anything. So I've been using it. But, you know, and again, once you find something, whether it's your primer or your clears that you're using, try and stick with it. You know, what a lot of modelers or people get into trouble with is they start some new project and then they go and switch up what they're using for products, and then something happens, you know, they get a reaction, and then they're, you know, I see them posting in forums and everything, you know, oh man, my project got ruined because I tried this new stuff. Well, think about what you just said there. You tried some new stuff, and you tried it on the model first. If you're going to use new stuff, you know, we're always hunting around and trying to get better. There's no, you know, that's nothing wrong with that. But let's say we're going to do something like this. Well, here's a you know, piece of cardboard, right? It comes with this Photo-Etch stuff. Take this and spray your whatever you're going to use if you're going to be trying something new, or an old piece of sheet styrene, or even the inside of the model box or whatever. Paint your primer, paint your paint on top of it, and put your clear that you're intending on using there. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen just the same on that as it will on the model. And let it happen on this, you know, worthless piece of cardboard, not your expensive model kit. I really don't understand how people keep making that mistake over and over. And I've seen some people posting on that several times, you know, like, oh man, I keep having this problem. Well, it's something with the paint that you're using. And some stuff is just not compatible, you know. I don't know about Rust-Oleum anymore. I know for a long time Rust-Oleum paints in the can had a bad reputation. A lot of people in the modeling community didn't like it because it had a lot of problems with like fish eyes and reactions and weird things. I don't really use much Rust-Oleum stuff, so I don't know anymore. But, you know, getting back to what I was saying to start this whole thing with, if you're going to, you know, once you get locked into what you like using, unless they quit making it anymore or something, keep on using it. Don't switch. There's no reason to switch to anything else. You know, like I said, unless it's a special project and you need a different look. Like maybe most of the time you paint models and you don't hardly ever use any gloss. Like most of the people that use gloss are guys that build car models, right? People that build starships and you know, battleships and figures and stuff like that, we're not using a lot of gloss coat. But let's say you did take on a project and for the first time ever you're going to use some gloss coat on it. Well, get your gloss coat and experiment with it first and make sure it's going to work. I hate to keep harping on that, and I don't want to be, you know, I'm not trying to make people sound dumb or whatever. I'm just trying to save you a lot of headaches. That's why I do these videos and everything, because I do care about that kind of stuff. I don't like to see people wasting their money and their time, getting frustrated. That kills a lot of the hobby for people right off the bat, especially if they're first getting started and they go, man, how do those guys make it look so easy and I'm having nothing but trouble, you know? Well, part of it's experience, but part of it is just using good common sense, you know? Sit down and really think about what you're doing. Get a system down and then stick with it. It's going to take a minute or two for this to dry, guys, and I have to make a pit stop here. So I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll come back. By that time, hopefully this will be dry. We can start cutting out our decal and get that laid down on there and make this start looking like something. I'll be right back with you guys in just a second. Okay guys, I'm back, switching back over to the other camera. Got a fresh can of rocket fuel here. Hope you guys got to take a little break too. So I think looks like our sealer is pretty well dried up. We can start doing our decals. figure out which one is which here. Got that side over there. Okay, so let me get the other. We can start off with this one here, I guess. That's pretty much symmetrical. Okay, I'll get this cut out. Now the only thing about, try to stay in camera here. The only thing about aftermarket decals, you guys probably already know that too, is that you got to cut them out exact. These aren't die cut. So you got to cut right on the line. Keep yourself a real good, trusty pair of sharp scissors. If you find a good pair of scissors, never let go of them. These have been with me for probably, golly, I probably had them 10 years and they still haven't gone dull. And I've been cutting brass with them like you saw. All right. Okay, so we want just the, we only need the back half of this for right now. I can cut this in half. Stay right on that line. I've gone back and forth on my method for doing this too. You know, when you're putting these decals down on top of Photo-Etch and then you're going to bend it. You know, so what I would do is like cut out every part, you know, and then you know, bend everything and then stick it on. But you still have spots where the decal edges overlap over the other one, or it leaves a little gap or something. But sometimes you can have trouble too, like when you stick it down on there and then you try to bend it, it might, down in the little corner, it might try to lift or wrinkle a little bit. I figured out that just going in there, if that happens with a little bit of like Solvacet or, you know, Walthers or whatever you're using for decal setter, it'll take care of that problem. So I just pretty much try to put them on all in one piece now, if I can, if the shape's not too complex. Yeah, I had a battle royale with decals on that little California Kid car that I just finished. I know I talked kind of lightly about it, but believe me, those flames were a nightmare. It was the putting the white down that really ran into problems because, you know, you had the original one down on there. I had used Solvacet on them and they were all settled down. And I was worried that, you know, because once that Solvacet hits that decal film, it starts to get like really fragile and soft. You barely even move it, it's going to rip or melt, you know. And the first thing that happened is whenever I lay down decals, I try to like put the, you know, thing right down on there, the backing paper, and hook it in a corner or something like that and slide it off flat so the decal never gets a chance to fold or, you know. Well, I had trying to put those down on those curved fenders like that. I got it down, and then the whole front part of one of the flames, the white, you know, outline part, it like folded under. Like, I don't know how it managed to do it because I was trying to be really careful. It folded under like 3 times, and I literally sat there for, I would guess, I bet you guys can all tell the same kind of story. I sat there literally for like 40 minutes, I bet, with my magnifying glasses on, picking away at that thing with my little, you know, tweezers. And I got every little part of it, you know, straightened back out. But I thought any minute this thing is going to rip or it's going to shrivel up on me. I've got a pretty good record of saving decals. I haven't had as many models as I've built. I haven't had a lot of kind of pride myself on, you know, decals in my decal work. And I thought, well, there goes my record. I think I finally destroyed it, but I couldn't believe that straightened back out, and it finally did. Thank goodness, because those decals were a one-of-a-kind set. It'd probably take me, I waited a year. I tried off and on eBay for a year. That's how long I've been wanting to build that model. It took me a year to finally get that set of decals before they popped up. Then they turned out to be the wrong scale. It all worked out in the end, though. I'm glad that I actually built the bigger car. The 1/25th version of it was going to be pretty small. But, you know, those are the stories of model building. But you can't, you know, don't let that stuff get to you. Like I said, it's all part of the process. And if we didn't enjoy a little bit of punishment, I guess we wouldn't do this. So I got some water going down on these. We're going to try to lay it down on this one first. Now what I'm going to do, I wasn't sure, you know, this is going to be the roof. Wasn't sure about that slot we cut there, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick it down on there. After that's totally dry, I'll come in here with my hobby knife like maybe tomorrow and just get rid of that excess film. I didn't want to try to cut it out now and when it's wet or beforehand, because I might have got it wrong. I could have missed a little bit or whatever, and it would, you know, would have screwed it up. Now Jerry's decals, I've always found them to be amazing. I think I talked about that when I did the, you know, I did that Discovery from 2001, and I did that interior in that thing. And his decals are amazing. I mean, how he gets this to work, where it like fits the part perfectly, and every little detail he's got on here, you know, if you can see it, we'll show it to you a little bit better in a minute. It will all line up with all the raised detail that's on these parts. He's just really, really good at what he does. Jerry, I talked to Jerry a lot. Jerry's been really, really busy with his business. His business of selling modeling stuff has grown so much that he literally is stuck almost every night. He works a full-time job, the poor guy. Works a full-time job and then comes home and spends like literally every evening after each dinner until about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning packing orders. He's doing it all by himself. And he has an excellent reputation in the community as far as everybody I've ever talked to. They always get their stuff on time. They get what they ordered. If something's wrong, Jerry makes it right immediately. It's really good to have somebody like that in the community. And Jerry, trust me, he's a really nice guy. And he cares about the community. He misses being part of the community. He's not able to do much modeling himself. He is a fantastic modeler in his own right. If you go back to his channel on YouTube and look at some of the stuff he's worked on, you'll see what I mean. But he just doesn't get a chance to do it much anymore, and he really misses that. But that's part of, you know, he's hoping to eventually get a little bit more settled down. I think he's getting ready to retire in another year or two from his regular job, and hopefully he'll have more time, because I miss having him around too. But yeah, his products, I know he sponsors me, and, you know, people are thinking, well, Boyd's just shilling or whatever, but it's true. I mean, I don't deal with people that I don't think are, you know, true blue to the modeling community. I'm not in it for money. I've got my own business making money doing what I do. I don't do any of this stuff here for money, talking to you guys or whatever. And, you know, Jerry, even though he's in the business, his prices are totally reasonable. He's not making a ton of money. He's doing it for the love of the hobby, and we need to support people like that. Others out there have, you know, started companies, and I'm not going to name any names, but some people have appeared out there that, you know, had products and then turned out to have really horrible customer service and all that, and they deserve when they get called out, you know, on the forums and stuff like that. So I really don't get into a whole lot of talking about all that. You know, it's usually poison, but, you know, I will stick up for the community, and if I see anybody out there like trying to do harm or whatever, I definitely will say something about it, because it's a fragile hobby. It's you know, it has enough trouble on its own growing, because we're not, unfortunately, seeing a lot of young people coming on board. Great to see a young fellow the other day. I subbed to his channel. Can't think of his name offhand, but Kenny had mentioned him, that he was looking for subscribers. I popped over. He's working on some kind of a German tank kit right now, and he's very enthusiastic. That's really great to see. Okay, I'm going to lay this baby down. Moment of truth. You see what I'm doing here? I'm keeping this film completely flat. I'm just hooking it with one corner with my finger and sliding it out like that. Do it like that whenever possible. Sometimes it's an area where you can't get to it, but whenever possible, if you do it like that, trust me, you're going to avoid a lot of chances for that, you know, that decal to fold on you or do something funky. And again, I'm looking at this just right off the bat, and it's just amazing to me. You got these little caves right here. You know, I guess that's where the Viper tubes are or whatever. This lined up exactly spot on the money with that stuff. It's crazy. Jerry, you are a talented man, my friend. All right, so that one I think we're gonna let her hang out over here for a while and dry. I still got tape on the bottom. I was wondering why that was so hard to come off of there. We'll let that ponder over in that area for a little while. Make sure one more last time that I didn't bump that decal when I moved it. But you can see also, one more little thing I wanted to point out. You see what the white paint did, it made everything stay nice and bright and clear looking, where I have a feeling that a dark color behind that might have been a problem with that blue, and some of that, it might have changed the color of that, but looks pretty good. We're actually getting something done here. Okay, I'm going to bring this one in now. I'm going to go ahead and get this tape off of here ahead of time. Nasty old stuff. Get rid of that. Let's come back over here to this guy. Now, one thing I want to be sure of here is that I didn't paint the... I might have screwed up here and painted the wrong side, but I don't think so. I think this is the one for... Well, maybe I did. Let me see. They're notched a certain way. And another nice thing here, Jerry always gives you an extra set of decals. So if you mess one of them up, you're not totally wiped out. Okay, now I know the notch lines up on that one, but that doesn't look right because the, yeah, because that's the back wall. All right, I might have screwed up here, guys. That doesn't surprise me. Okay, so we got that one, and that's the back wall. Yeah, this is the one we need. We didn't screw up. Thank goodness. All right. Doing this live modeling, I often hear that theme, you know, from the wide world of sports. You guys are old enough my age, in your 50s or 40s. You remember the old ABC Wide World of Sports, that theme music they used to play when they showed the guy wiping out on the skis at the bottom, you know, of the deal? That's that's the music I hear a lot of the times when I'm trying to do this stuff live. And the agony of defeat. Okay, so that's going to look pretty good. Let's make sure she doesn't have any trash on it. And give her. So, hope we got a good crowd tonight. I didn't see, I couldn't look when I was over there. Hope we had a nice turnout. I was really happy to see the good turnout last time. It felt great to be back together with the old gang again. A lot of the old names came back. Glad to see that. It was disappointing when the Google community, you know, had to go away. I thought we were going to lose a lot of people. Most of them have stuck around. We started the new committee, you know, the model shop community. We have our own page. I've been neglecting that a little bit because the problem with that darn thing is that everybody that tries to join, I have to manually register, because of the fact that, like, everybody out there and their brother is like a spammer or a scammer these days, it sounds like, or seems like. And I'll let somebody in there automatically, and the first thing they do is start putting spam or really nasty stuff in there. So literally what I have to do is, like, they'll apply, and then I have to go and manually check every person that's in there, send them an email asking them if they're a real person, and then when they reply, then I can go ahead and put them in. And even one time after I did that, the guy said, oh yeah, I'm a straight up Star Trek fan, you know, I like modeling. I let him join. the first thing he puts in there is posts to porn links and stuff. I mean, come on, dude. You know, that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a lot of this stuff. If Kenny's here tonight, I guarantee he's thinking, man, you're reading my mind. I deal with the exact same thing. So it's kind of frustrating, and that's why the community hasn't grown that much. I think we're up to, I don't know, 250, 270 people, whereas back in the old Google Hangout we used to have, I think, over 1,000. And the old Sci-Fi Model Action site, there were over 4,000 people in there. But a lot of those people weren't active. You know, a lot of people join and never post or anything. But so that's my fault for not, you know, I just really literally don't have the time anymore to sit down there and spend 3 or 4 hours, you know, going through that. I try to go through it once a week, and I'll send out the email, and then you know, sometimes I won't get a reply, so I just let it go. Well, then a guy will reply like a month later and say, hey, I'm still not registered. I'm like, well, you didn't reply to the email I sent you. So, you know, it's kind of frustrating, but, and I know you guys probably don't want to hear about all that, but it's just part of what goes on. That's on there looking pretty good. All right. Give this a little tamp down here. Don't see any major pimples in our decals. So that means we don't have a lot of dirt underneath of it. Looks pretty good. I'm going to try to get this darn piece of tape off of this one. Let me see if I can get these up in the light and show these to you guys once more. Especially this one. This one looks really cool. Let me get that up off of there. Water's still trying to make it hang on there. Get the back side of it dry too. I think I've got it on autofocus. Hopefully you guys are seeing it. Again, I can't see my monitor from here. But look at that really cool little, you know, forced perspective, the way that trails off in the background. That's pretty sweet. I got to make sure that, looks pretty good though, that those little slots are all lined up, you know. I'm not covering them with my decal. We just want the clear film over that. I'll have to go back and clear that all out of there. But that's what it'll look like, guys. Pretty cool. So we'll have, this will be the actual floor, you know, and then the thing going on, and the, you know, up there in the background. And that'll get folded. That'll look pretty cool. So I think that's going to be a wrap tonight, guys, for my on the bench stuff, because I was going to try to go a little bit further, but I think I'm going to be smart and let these dry overnight before I try to bend them. I'll just wind up screwing it up. I do have extra decals, but why waste them? So I think I'll stop. Now the other thing, the other side we got to do exactly the same way. Like I said, I got a pretty good idea. You can see that we got the, let me show you this part one more time here too, just to show you. You can see that now with that decal on there, that opening I cut looks a lot better. You can't see the little jagged spot there at the top. That's going to be passable for sure once it's up on the ceiling. You know, you're basically not even going to be able to see it. I really don't want you to be able to see that. All we want is the light coming down out of it. That's such a narrow opening. You're going to have to put your eyeball right up in that hole to be able to see what's in there. But the chaser effect thing, you'll be able to see from a few feet away. You know, you look in there and you'll definitely see that illusion of that movement, and that's all I was really shooting for. So now next week when we come back, I'll be a little further along on this. I'm going to try not to do too much on it. I want to show you guys this whole process. I've got a lot of other work to do this week anyway, so I'll set this off to the side, and hopefully when we come back and show you the update next week and work on it some more, I will be able to start bending it, you know, getting it all shaped, glued together, and then we're going to start putting SMDs in, which will be fun because that's something that I get a lot of questions about, you know, how all that works. And we're going to put our SMDs in the floor. These parts have already been light blocked and everything, and we'll get a chance to see how our lighting from the ceiling is going to work out. I'm going to have to make little lenses, you know, just some clear sheet, put it underneath of the, you know, on the top of that one and on the bottom of this one, diffuse it, and I really think that's going to be pretty cool. I really think that little effect's going to work. We'll start looking at Ralph's board. I'll get that wired up on camera for you guys, so anybody that wants to learn how to wire up one of Ralph's boards will get to see that. And we'll go from there. And then the following episode we'll be on to, just to give you, you know, what I'm thinking here, I'll start doing some fiber optics. While I'm here, I've been meaning to do this for a while. I wanted to give a shout out to the guys at the fiber optics store too, because again, some really nice people. I had ran out of fiber optics. That's another reason I came to a grinding halt on my Star Destroyer. That thing is eating up fiber optics like you wouldn't believe. Anybody who built that kit knows what I'm talking about. So I needed to order some more. So I went online, and I've been buying them. You know, I don't use a ton of fiber optics, but I had bought their basic, what they call their starter kit, probably 5 years ago, which just is 3 little, you know, small rolls of the stuff. And I think 3 or 4 different sizes. They have a standard kind of size, you know, that most people use. And I finally wound up using most of that up, so I just went ahead and ordered the same thing again because I thought, well, you know, I don't use it that much, and that'll last me probably another 4 or 5 years. Well, those people over there sent me a little email, and they just said, hey, we've seen your channel, and we're going to send you a little gift. So this is what they sent me, you guys. They sent me a lifetime supply of fiber optics. I mean, in all the popular sizes. So a really nice shout out to those guys over there. They said, hey, just, you know, show it on your channel and explain to people how it works and everything. And whenever you know, building something where you can use it. So we've got side firing stuff. We've got, like, I don't even know what this stuff is. I'll have to dig into it a little bit more. Solid core side glow. This stuff is some thick stuff right here. Man, that's like, you could tow a car with that stuff. But all the different sizes. I'll never need fiber optics again, probably. So, but, you know, Paul over there, thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate it, and we'll put it to good use. If I have some stuff here that I don't think I'm going to use, I'm going to probably do a giveaway and give it to somebody out there that's got a project that needs that kind of stuff. So, all right, you guys. One more quick break so I can kind of clean up here a little bit, and I'll come back, sit down, and we'll do a little Q&A session, and hopefully I get a chance to hear what everybody's working on out there. Hope you guys are building on your bench here at the same time you're watching the show. So one more quick break, everybody, and we'll see you back in again in just a couple seconds. Okay, everybody, back over at the main bench again, and hopping over into the chat area. Just kind of check it out and see if we got any new people that showed up. Um, Looks like a good turnout, guys. I see what we got 148 watching now. That's pretty good. That's a whole lot more than I expected. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with us here on Saturday night. A lot of fun. If you're new here, you'll find out that these people here are all a great bunch of guys. They've uh, very helpful to each other in the modeling community. Um, can't say enough about all the people here. Treat everybody really well and help promote the hobby in a really positive way. So that's what we're all trying to do. Did anybody hear my question earlier on about recommendation for uh, a Photo-Etch bending tool? Anybody out there have any idea about where I should look for something like that? I've been looking for at a couple of them at Micro Mark and a couple of those other places. Um, the a lot of times what I'm finding is that they're really small ones. I need one that's probably maybe at least 4 inches wide. If there's something out there like that. Anyway, I'll keep looking around and see what I come up with. I might have to just go ahead and try doing it with what I have. I might go, one of the things that I used to have here and I cannot figure out what happened to it is I had a really nice stainless steel ruler that had really nice crisp edges on it, so I could have used something like that. But I don't know, somebody probably borrowed it like usual and didn't bring it back. So I'm gonna have to come up with something like that. That's really kind of keeping me from going much further on the. I don't want to ruin that Photo-Etch set for that Star Destroyer. So someone's saying Master Tool, a trumpeter actually makes one. Okay, I'll check that out. Scale Model Eric says he's watching from Canada. That's pretty cool. What kind of rotary tool would you recommend for models? Well, Dremel. That's pretty much all that's going on right now. There was the original Dremel Stylus, which was my total favorite tool. It's like this one right here. This is called a Genesis. This was kind of what replaced it. This is from another company. Now they quit making these too, which sucks because I would say this is not quite as good as quality as the original Dremel Stylus, but it's not bad. And I mean the Dremel Stylus, I think originally when they came out they were around $60. The this one you could get when they were available for around $25. Plus it came with a huge accessory pack. Now I had got one of these. It lasted me about a month, and then all of a sudden one night I was using it out here, and it just went wild on me. It went wide open, wouldn't turn off. It's like it became possessed, and I had to just let there and die out. And the Dremel I had before that, my stylus that I actually had for like 4 years, and probably put 1,000,000 miles on that thing because I literally use it for everything that I do. It went haywire on me. Well, a good modeling friend of mine that you guys may know his channel, Jake Demko of Demko Model Works, sent me this one. I think he had it as an extra, and he may regret sending it to me now, poor Jake, because they don't make them anymore. They quit making these too, which it seems like whenever they make something good, they quit making it. But I really prefer the pistol grip, the small. It can handle bigger jobs, but it can also do all the really small jobs. I don't like any of the ones that have a cord on them because they obviously, harder to handle and you got to constantly have it plugged in. This runs on rechargeable, ion batteries. So I really can't tell you. I think there's a small mini Dremel out there right now that's just a straight one that's rechargeable. I think one of the guys that channel I follow, a friend of the community here, Armando, you guys know him. I think he has one of those and he says he likes it, but it's not a pistol grip. But I thought that they were going to make like a pistol handle that you could stick on it or something, but I didn't follow up on that to see if they ever did that or not. I'm praying that that one I have here lasts, because when these do pop up on eBay now, even the Genesis one, which was originally like $25, it's $75 or $80 now. People know that they're hard to find. Try to find a uh, a original stylus, and you're talking like over $100 on eBay, and you're probably getting one that's used, so I wouldn't really trust it. You know, the battery's not replaceable in it, so if that battery goes bad, it's basically throw it away. Does anybody have any questions? Rob, I see you asking about the Galileo. We'll talk about that, Rob. It'll be a while, like I told you earlier. The kit's not even out yet. Uh, okay, Plasmo. Yeah, I know Plasmo. I'm subscribed to his channel. Has a good video on how to make a Photo-Etch bender. I'll check that out. Oh, you don't have to do that, Scott. I'll find one here. It'll cost you a fortune to send something from Australia. I appreciate the offer, though. I'll find something. I'm not going to be back on the Star Destroyer anytime soon anyway. That's my own project. I'm not building that for anybody. That's my own deal, so I'm in no hurry to get that one done. I still got to put a ton of fiber optic in that model, which I can actually get back to doing it at now. Now I got a lifetime supply. That was really cool, those guys, to send that over. I didn't expect that at all. When the box came up, I was like, what the heck? I need to make a rack up here so I can put all those spools. I wasn't anticipating that. The Galileo kit from round 2 sometime later this year, and what I heard is it's only going to be the shell. The interior is going to come out as a separate kit later on, which, that's kind of I don't know about that, but I probably won't build one for myself because I've already got mine. I've got the Cooper one, but I hope it's a nice kit. Okay, Dingo Z is asking, I'm looking for options for an airbrush type and needle size to spray my base coats. I want to get away from rattle cans and spray a nice, clean, smooth base coat. I would recommend, if you're just starting out, Dingo, go, if you have a Hobby Lobby, well, they're closed right now, but you might be able to get it online. Um, the Iwata Neo, to me, that is the best dollar for dollar beginner airbrush that there is out there. There's some really nice airbrushes, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking any of the airbrushes. Like Badger, it's an awesome airbrush. Iwata makes some really nice high-end airbrushes. There's some other brands that I might not be familiar with, but Iwata is a trusted brand, and you can get that airbrush if you use the Hobby Lobby 40% off discount. You can get that airbrush for around $40. It's a dual action. Now, some people have their opinion about airbrushes as far as whether dual or single action. What that means is that how the trigger works. You know, on a single action, you push the button down, you immediately get paint. It's like spraying with a can. Um, I recommend, if you're going to do any kind of airbrushing, that you get a dual action airbrush to start with and just teach yourself to use that, because it's more versatile. And if you're going to do a lot of airbrushing, you know, if you're just looking for a basic entry-level airbrush, um, a single action will probably be fine. But if you ever want to go beyond that and start being able to do shading and weathering and stuff like that, you're going to want to get a dual action brush. So I would recommend getting a dual action to start with and just get used to that right off the bat, so that you don't have to learn it twice, basically. If you ever start off with a single and then move to the dual, you're going to have to relearn it again. So start off with a dual, and the inexpensive Neo is a nice brush because it has a large needle in it, and it'll work well with these paints that I'm using, or, you know, thicker type paints. It's made for spraying bigger things, you know, like you're saying, base coats and things like that, painting car bodies, ships, tanks, most, you know, medium to small model size kit. Um, it'll work great for that. Oh, Leon, the Timber Company says UMM USA makes large Photo-Etched benders. Okay, I'll check them out. I have their scribing tool, and I love that thing. H.G. Barnes says the pistol add-on warps at high speed. I'm not sure what that means, but he's saying that the pistol attachment on the Dremel is maybe not so good. Yeah, Chris, he uses just a basic airbrush and he does fine with that. He's got the old I think, is that a Posh you're using, Chris? I think Chris uses the gravity feed Posh, if I'm not mistaken. I should know. I watch every one of his videos. By the way, I had a client that sent me an enterprise to build, and he mentioned that he had a whole bunch of, stuff that he had bought for the model to build it. And he said, hey, I'm not going to, he decided to have me build it for him. But anyway, he said, hey, I'm going to throw in this stuff, and I said, oh, okay, cool. And I thought it was just going to be a few little odds and ends. He sent me a box full of stuff. One of the things he sent me was this brand new Posh airbrush. So I believe it's a single action. It's a single action gravity feed. But I'm going to give this sucker away on the show here one of these nights. I'm going to have to come up with some kind of little gimmick, little contest or something. Not too crazy, but I'm going to give this away. Either that or I might just throw it out there and say whoever gives me a good reason or excuse that they need one, I'll send it to you. You just pay for the postage or whatever. You'll still have to get a compressor with it, but this is a pretty nice airbrush. I have no idea what they cost. I imagine it's probably $40 or $50 airbrush, but I have no use for it. So we'll bring that up a little bit down the road. I started out with a Posh airbrush, and I think it was one almost exactly like that, and a Tester's compressor that had no no air adjustment or anything. It had an on and off switch, and that was it. It was kind of made out of a clear blue plastic. And again, I let somebody borrow that, and it never came back. But I use the yeah, that's exactly true, Chris. It's not the airbrush, it's the person holding it. Yeah, a lot of people are intimidated by an airbrush, but don't be intimidated at all. It's when you get proficient at it, just start off with basics, and you'll be handling it like it was born in your hand. Dingo, I was using the Yamaha DTX Explorer. It's old school. I just have it out here in the shop. I play the drums when I'm in between taking a break or whatever. Now I used to play a lot more. Years ago I used to spend a lot more time doing it. I'm actually pretty rusty. I don't get much time to sit down and put in a lot of practice anymore. I'll just flip on the radio or whatever and wail on the stuff for a little. I'll burn off a little steam in between waiting for paint to dry and stuff like that. The thing's a mess. It's covered with overspray, and one of the fellows that commented on that video said, hey, why don't you go out and buy our expensive rolling set? You're using old school stuff. I'm like, well, it would get destroyed in a matter of months. That thing is bulletproof, and it's also pretty cool because the whole thing can pack away and become like the size of a suitcase. So if I ever get tired of it and want to put it away, I can store it away, and I don't want to spend a lot of money on that. Talking about airbrushes a little bit more, just one thing I'll bring up is I know Kenny over at Sci-Fi Annecy or Hobby Link. I keep calling him Sci. He probably hates it when I say that. It's Hobby Link International now. He works with Badger airbrush, and one of the things that's going around about that is that if you're buying an airbrush from Badger, don't buy it from Amazon. He's been adamant about that. A lot of people have been apparently getting some bad experience with buying airbrushes through Amazon. They've been getting them where they were either already used or somebody got one and screwed it up and then sent it back and they didn't take it out of the system and they just resold it to somebody else. So Kenny's been talking about that. Um, yeah, make sure if you're going to buy it from a reputable source. Well, not that Amazon's not reputable, but apparently they're having a problem with that particular product. Modeler X, yeah, I tried one of the Grex. Don't remember which one it was. It had the little pistol grip on it, and the pistol grip just wasn't for me. I'm so used to the finger trigger that I just went back to. I've got two airbrushes. I've got the Neo, which I use for general stuff, and then I got the Eclipse HLP or whatever it's called. The one that's for doing really fine painting. I use that for shading and weathering and stuff. They're both great airbrushes, and I'm using an Awada compressor that I'm surprised has lasted this long with all the dust and everything out here. It's probably 6 years old, and I use it constantly. Anybody else have any questions? Andy Grams is asking, what's your thought on the new craft paints, and since you're using them now, on the old lacquers for the Aztec pearls? Oh, I would still use those. You're talking about the taxidermy paints from Mackenzie. They're lacquer-based. Iridescent paints are still the best on the market. I would still use those. In fact, this fall I'm going to do another refit. My refit that I built that I have for myself took some battle damage. Not only that, it's outdated now, and out of all these refits I've built for other people and everything, and all these other models, I don't even have a TOS. I have the old first pilot one that I did, but I've learned so much about building those kits since then, since like, 5 years ago. I want to build a TOS for myself, and I want to build a refit with all the updated. I've got everything here. I've got Ralph's newest board. I've got Jerry's updated parts. I've got the new, green strawberry Photo-Etch. I've got the whole pair of graphics. I've got everything to make a beautiful model. So I want to get around to doing the another refit, and I'll definitely be using those same paints again. I haven't seen anything come along that's any better. Now the Mackenzie also offers their water-based version of those paints, and here I am, promoting the craft paints and all that. I've heard that the iridescent water-based paints from them aren't so hot because they just don't give that same look, and you got to put them on you got to put it on a lot thicker to get the look that you're looking for, and it causes it to be raised, so like whenever you pull your mask, you're seeing these ridges of paint all over your model, and that's not good. And that something you can't avoid when you're going to have to pile the paint up that thick and you're using masks. You're going to have those little edges on your paint lines, and sanding it doesn't work too good on that kind of paint, because if you sand it, it takes away that shimmering, look. Now, one thing I will talk about that I brought up on the my new video on the California Kid. This stuff right here, guys, is awesome. This is the All-Clad Aqua Gloss. It's water-based clear, and it looks like this is an old bottle. It's more yellowish and white than it started out being. I've probably had this for 2 years sitting out here in the heat. When you buy it brand new, it doesn't look that bad. This stuff is what you want to seal your Enterprise refit with. This will go over top of that iridescent paint and not ruin that effect. Trust me, every time you spray any kind of clear coat over that iridescent paint, it takes away some of that shimmering look. But you have to seal that because you're going to put decals on top. If you don't seal it, your decals are going to be just sitting there hanging out in the breeze, and over the years they'll start to peel or whatever. So you got to seal the decals. That means you got to use some kind of sealer on it. This stuff is made for that. It's made um, to cover chrome, you know, like the All-Clad chrome stuff. They're metallic finishes. It's specifically made for that. So go out and get you a bottle of this and try it. You will not be disappointed. I had it sitting here all this time and never thought about using it for that. So a couple weeks ago on a goof, I got out some of my iridescent paint, you know, starting to think about that project this fall. Sprayed a few test panels, sprayed a little bit of this over it, and man, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. It doesn't ruin that effect at all. As far as I know, it's the only um, Future doesn't work, Spencer. I tried it. Um, any kind of clear that I've ever tried, it takes, so it ruins it. Like if you spray, like say the All-Clad chrome on a, let me give you an example. When I did the uh, big B29 bottle or bomber that I built, uh, and I did that bright metallic finish on there, um, I knew I was going to have to put decals on. So I started doing a little testing on that, and I sprayed it with, you know, all the different kinds of clear uh, uh, that I have here, and I have literally every kind that's available, including, you know, the high-grade automotive stuff. And everything dulled it down and made it look more like aluminum or, you know, silver metallic like a paint finish on a car. Completely ruined it. Well, I showed you guys the other day when I did that California Kid, I used a Sharpie marker and did that stainless trim that goes around the car. And I hate using that because the only reason I use that, my Molotov pen had dried up, but it was basically the same thing. And I knew it was going to take probably a month before that would be completely dry, where you could touch it and it wouldn't, you know, you couldn't smudge it or whatever. Everybody that's used that stuff knows what I'm talking about, especially on cars when we're all, you know, doing the trim around the windows and all that stuff. Um, and I thought, man, you know, there's got to be something that, well, I remembered I had this stuff. So I got a little brush and I just went around that little, and it dries in about 10 minutes, and it made a perfect little transparent film on the top of it where it didn't take away any of that, you know, metallic look, and it's dry instantly. I mean, you could touch it. It's got a nice hard shell on it, um, and you know, it worked. So I tried it on that iridescent, and it did the same thing. So now I'm not worried at all about later on when I do the refit about sealing it, because when I did my original refit, I did seal that, and it did take away a little bit of that iridescent, and it, you know, that sucks because you're spending literally months putting that stuff down, and to ruin it like that, I mean, it didn't ruin it, but it definitely didn't look as good. And like Chris Cortell, hey, good to see you here tonight, Chris. He's saying right here that Chris is another guy that kind of turned everybody on to using Future, and he's saying it doesn't work on the. He's tried it on the Chrome stuff, and it doesn't work. I know he's right. I've tried it. It doesn't work. But this stuff is, you know, formulated for their All-Clad metallic paint, so it works. So if you're doing those, you know, I'm going to be doing that big, the one you see behind me here, that big B36. That's going to be that done in that chrome, bright polished aluminum. So now I've got something I can seal that with, and that's going to work out really good. Because when I did that B29, I had to wait for that thing to dry, I guess, until it felt like it was totally safe to handle. It took about a month for that silver paint to dry on there, before I was comfortable putting decals down and everything on it. But yeah, Future's great. Future uh, is my go-to for, let's say I get a little car kit and the glass is a little bit messed up, you know, and I polish it and it still has a little bit of imperfection in it. You can take a brush. You don't even need to spray that stuff on. Take a nice clean brush and just put a layer of that over there, let it dry, and it makes that plastic look brand new, like, you know. Yeah, you could do that, Andy, if you're using dry rub decals, but you're taking a risk that they don't start peeling up on you later on. In fact, that's exactly what they did on the big studio model. Those were dry rub decals, and when you looked at the pictures of the model, after it sat in storage, all those decals peeled up. You'd have to have somebody make those because nobody makes those decals in dry rub. Yeah, good call, Omar. Yeah, you don't shake this stuff. I mentioned that on my video the other day. For whatever reason, When you get this, the whole bottle will be clear and there'll be like that much in the bottom of this white, you know, and it says right on the bottle, do not shake it. So I don't even know why that stuff's in there then, but it has to be in there for a reason, I guess. But they tell you not to shake it before you use it. So that's an important thing to remember. Yeah, Don Rose says he wants to do a bare metal F104. That's what you want to use on it. Or Andy, yeah, he's making decals for that. Yeah, anytime you're using gloss, any kind of gloss, you definitely got to go the extra mile. Rocket Boy pointing out you want to make sure you do a double good job cleaning your airbrush because that stuff gets in there and gets all gummy and nasty. It's harder to get rid of than paint. I want to buy a sonic cleaner for the airbrush. I've wanted one of those for a while. I just need to get around to getting one. I put my airbrushes through hell here. It does seal. It will seal the decals, Alex. So you do your paint job, put the decals down, then seal the whole thing with this stuff. If you're going to do a metallic finish. Yeah, I've seen you using yours, Kenny. What brand was that, Kenny? I asked you that question, and I don't know if you caught it or if I missed your answer. What brand do you use? I looked, and there's like a million of them out there. I don't know which one to get. I've got an old Iwata uh, Eclipse that's partly plugged, and it's because I used it for a lot of clear coating. And that automotive clear is really nasty because it's got an accelerator in it, and it dries like rock hard. So I think I got a little chunk stuck in there, and I'm hoping that Sonic guy might be able to pop that out of there and make that brush usable again. Okay, thanks, Kenny. What's Omar up to now? Canadian Starship's future is this right here. I'm pretty sure they sell it up in Canada. This might be the old outdated bottle. In fact, my bottle's empty here, but it's Future Floor Polish or Future Liquid Floor Care. This stuff is great. Check out Chris Cortell's YouTube channel, Classic Plastic 101. I'm not going to quit hyping on that. You'll see a lot of detailed information about how to use Future. Yeah, this airbrush I've got that's clogged up, I've tried everything on it. I know all the tricks for cleaning my airbrush, and there's something stuck in the really up inside the nozzle, not the, it's a little mixing chamber, the air and where the paint and air mixes together. It's kind of hard to get to. You have to totally disassemble it, and I'm hoping maybe a sonic treatment will fix it up. If not, I'll just have to, you know, retire it. But I didn't have that many miles on that one before it got clogged up. It's my own fault. I think I was painting here really late one night and went to bed and forgot I had clear in the cup, and it, with that accelerator in there, it dried. Made a hell of a mess trying to get it out of there. I got it to where it'll actually spray again, but it has a little bit of a, it makes a little bit of a whistling sound when it sprays, and you can see that the cone fan shape coming out of it is not exactly right. It's kind of, it's got a little bit of, eh. Yeah, this bottle here is from, golly, man, I bought it. I finally ran out about a couple weeks ago. Man, I bet I bought this in 2008. I'm not kidding. So the whole bottle may look totally different now. Go ahead and throw that away anyway. Yeah, Mark says he can get Future a similar product in Australia, but it has a little bit of a yellow tint to it from the dye. Yeah. But yeah, back to this All-Clad again. You can brush this on and it'll pretty much self-level all by itself. I mean, I wouldn't paint a whole car body with it, but touch-ups and stuff like that, it blends in really good. You always get that perfect paint job, and you get one little spot somewhere where something happened, and you just need to, and it's perfect for that. Yes, it's Classic Plastic 101. Again, you guys don't be on here. Don't be afraid to hype your YouTube channel. I love YouTube channels for modelers. So if you're on here and you have a YouTube channel, go ahead and give yourself a shout out. I have no problem with that. I hope other people find your channel. I'm actually subscribed to a lot of channels. I just don't have a lot of time to comment. I'm watching you guys. I'm just not, I don't have time to always comment all the time. It's good to see some of the guys that weren't doing it for a while are kind of starting to trickle back in too. Yeah, I've soaked this thing. I've tried everything. I have this stuff called Son of a Gun. It's an actual professional grade spray gun cleaner. Trust me, it's some powerful stuff. It's almost like acid, and whatever is stuck in there, it ain't coming out with that. It's going to have to be vibrated out of there or sonicked out of there, or hopefully that'll break it down. But like I said, if not, I'm willing to give it a shot, but I'll keep using it for that afterwards anyway. So I'm all up for buying that to try to fix that airbrush. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll keep using it anyway. There you go, Derek Sabora. That's why we're here, guys, helping each other out. He's in Canada. You can find the Future at Canadian Tire. Is your channel called Canadian Starships? Sci-Fi Model Shop says Harbor Fright. Yeah, you could call it fright sometimes. Some of the stuff they sell there, I'd be frightened of it. But for basic stuff, it's all right. Never tried sprue goo. Don't know what that is. I mean, I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with it, though, Dingo. I've never used it. Yeah, Windex is great for cleaning your airbrush if you're spraying Future through it or just these water-based paints. Canadian Starships. There you go, guys. Check out his channel. I see our little friend there, Kenny. He's up to almost 100 subscribers. Good job on you for shouting him out. He seems pretty happy about that. What is he, German or something? He's got a little bit of an accent. I checked his channel out yesterday watching him working on that tank. We need to talk him into getting a stand to put his camera on, though. I was getting a little seasick. He'll figure all that stuff out. Yeah, Chris Cortell, alcohol will get rid of Future, cuts right through it. Sprue goo takes a long time to dry. I know people out there are making their own. They take, they save all their sprue and they soak it in that liquid weld glue that they sell, and they swear by it for gap filling and all that. I've never tried it though. Somebody asked earlier about the putty I'm using. I use a couple different kinds. I use Bondo red spot putty. I use perfect plastic putty. I use Vallejo, which is another Chris Cortell that turned out to be awesome for doing figures. You know, if you got, I dabbled around doing a few of those vinyl figures, and you know where you got the seams where their shoulders are and the hips and all that. This is old now too. I think it's pretty well dried up. Well, there's a little bit left, but this is the Vallejo. That's great on those vinyl figures because it's got that small little applicator tip, and you can go around there and without even doing it. I didn't even have to do any sanding on those figures that I did. I just put a little, you know, bead on there and then waited a little while. Took a Q-tip with water, kind of went around there and smoothed it out. You can texture it, you know. Perfect plastic putty's pretty good. I like it because it's water-based and it cleans up with water. And then you got your standard, you know, this stuff is not really for, I mean, you can do minor seam work. I would say, you know, as long as the gaps aren't very big. I wouldn't depend on this stuff for any kind of major structural stuff because it's not meant for that. It stays soft when it dries. So minor, it's really meant for when you're doing, you know, Bondo work on a car. When you put your Bondo on, you sand it, it leaves tiny little pits in it. This was meant to originally just fill in those pits or minor dings and dents in a car. I mean, I'm talking really minor because I don't know. They have a recommended minimum thickness for this stuff that you apply it. And I used to know what that was, but it has to be really thin. So minor gaps and things like that, it's good for filling it in, and minor imperfections in your paint. But for structural stuff, you got to use something more robust. Now this stuff dries like hard as a rock when it dries, and it's really good. It's really sandable, and again, it's water-based cleanup. Only problem I have with this stuff, it constantly dries up in the tube. I had the other type, you know, the old plastic one that was a little thicker and wider. That dried up, so I tried this stuff, and I can already tell that you know it's starting to get a little bit hard. And I've only opened it and used it once, and I've had it probably about a month. I might have to start putting it in Ziploc bags or something. I don't know. There's always something, but that stuff's pretty cheap, and you know I go through it like crazy, so it usually doesn't have a chance to go bad. Bondo and 3M both make the red spot putty. They're both the same. Either brand is just as good. Yeah, like Chris said, it's not meant for structural stuff. I'm talking about the red putty. It's a skim coat for minor imperfections. That's right. Yeah, everybody that's here, subscribe to Canadian Starships. I even like the name. Hopefully we'll pop you a few subscribers there, bud. Anything that you're going to have, you know, man, I'm trying to give you a number here. I really can. I mean, I can see it in my mind. 3/16 of an inch gap, anything, you know, that. This is what I use, Modeler X. I'll get this out. Now this is a little bit more involved. This is some awesome stuff. It's Evercoat Polyflex. It's a two-part with a catalyst. This is what you want to use for your gap filling if you're going to do any kind of major gap filling on any kind of model. It's this is formulated for cars, but there's there's three different versions of it. There's Evercoat. Now you got me on the spot. I can't remember, but the Polyflex is designed for plastic, so it's for repairing, you know, like your plastic car bumper when it gets cracked. So it has a flex agent in it. It can flex a little bit before it'll crack, but it's totally sandable. It'll feather edge when you sand it, and it dries hard as a brick. I mean, it's like Bondo, but it's a lot more advanced formula than Bondo. It ain't cheap. This stuff will probably cost you 40 or 50 bucks for this bottle. But for a model, you know, this will last you for years. Keep it in somewhere, you know, here I am saying that and I have it sitting out in my garage, but I go through it pretty quick. But if you're going to have it around for a long time, just keep it in an area where it doesn't get much hotter than like 70 degrees and it should be fine. You get the, you know, you got to get the hardener with it. But maybe put a little bit on my finger if I can here and show you what it looks like. It's kind of a cream, you know, pretty easy to work with. But once you mix that hardener, you got about maybe 5 minutes of working time before it'll start to set. But it's really sandable. Does have a little bit of an odor to it. It smells like fiberglass resin if you've ever worked with that. But it's awesome stuff. Best thing there is out there for if you're, you know, like I said, if you got something with serious gaps in it. If you got too big of a gap, you should take and cut a little bit of a styrene strip and put it in there and reforce it anyway. You shouldn't try to fill a huge gap with filler. You should patch that with some styrene and then putty over it. "72 inches coming along, Brian. Just working on it a little bit at a time. I'll be back with another update on that pretty soon. It's not looking like we're going to make it in time for the July show. That's all right. It'll make it to a show, maybe Wonderfest, maybe next year. Not even sure right now if they're even going to have Wonderfest this year, or if they're even going to have the model show here with the stuff that's going on. So maybe that was kind of a blessing in disguise. It's taken a little bit longer than I thought to get everything made that the model needs. There's still a couple parts I'm missing too. Dave that makes the kit, he's a really nice guy. He's working with us on that. We'll get our stuff and everything. But as I said from the very beginning of that one's not something that I'm building as a AMT model kit, you know, build it in 2 weeks. This thing is going to, it's a one in a lifetime kit for me. It's a, you know, it's a very expensive model, so there's no point in hurrying on that at all. And it's one of a kind. There isn't even another kit available. The guy's not selling them to the general public, so if I screw it up, it's a done deal. So yeah, I'm not taking any chances. But anytime I do something substantial on it, you guys will see it. Yeah, I've used epoxy sculpt. That's like more like a modeling clay kind of stuff. I mean, it's all right. And Aves. This stuff is a little bit more creamy than that. Yeah, you'll find that I'm not like the most go-to guy for some of the, I don't want to sound bad about it, but I'm pretty simple with the stuff that I keep here. I kind of liken it to, and again, I hope I'm not insulting anybody out there, because like Chris said a minute ago, it's about the person and not the stuff you have. I remember when I was a kid out of high school, I worked at a professional golf course, one of the top golf courses. It was down in, oh God, where the hell was it? Lake. It's a lot of rich people live there. It's a lake right there in the southern border of Wisconsin and Illinois. It was the old Playboy Club. And I worked at the golf course there in the summertime, and man, these guys would come in, you know, with their $5,000 clubs and their Gucci golf shoes and their, you know, all this stuff, and they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a golf ball. So what the point I'm trying to make is that, especially if you're just getting into modeling, don't go out and buy all the top brand name, you know, like, okay, one of the things I call it a luxury. This is a paint stirring tool. Now, I just recently got this, and I use it now, but I never needed one of these. Somebody actually gave this to me, and I'm using it now, but it's things like that when you start out modeling, don't buy, you know, every tool under the sun. Start off with the basics and get what you need, and then find out, um, if you like modeling or not. You might, like I said, I saw so many guys at the golf course there where they would have all these expensive clubs and everything, and then they'd get really mad because they couldn't play golf worth a darn, and they'd throw it all in the trash and walk away, And somebody else would be like, great, I'll take it, But when you get into this hobby, just start off with all the basic stuff. Get your basic tools. One little 11 blade hobby knife, basic set of paintbrushes. If you are going to go with an airbrush, start off with a simple one, like I said, the $40 airbrush, things like that, and I think you'll be a lot happier. And then if you want to move up to some of the other stuff, you can do that later on. But the hobby's expensive enough as it is. So staying within your boundaries and everything like that is always a good idea. Murphy and Grayson. Oh, is it just Grayson, or did Murphy come in too? I didn't see. I see Grayson. Nice to see you, Grayson. Oh, cool, Brian. 1/600 Titanic. Have fun building that. That's a pretty nice kit. Yeah, Matt's Model Shop. How many people start with the 350 scale refit as their first kit? Too many, Matt. That's why they call the kit the Widowmaker. Yeah, if you want some good advice on good practical common sense stuff to use with models and everything, watch Chris Cortell's channel. Classic Plastic 101. He's really down to earth on all that stuff, and I really like his attitude on how he talks about all this stuff and not make a big deal out of it. Everybody likes to sound really technical and fancy, like I've got this and I've got that, but again, just like he said, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it. Yeah, it sure does. Spending too much knocks them out pretty quick too, Matt. Especially if they have a wife. Not to say that the wives aren't out there building. I'd like to see more women involved too, but yeah, most of the time the husband will get in trouble buying too much stuff. Oh, yeah, Modeler X. All you have to do is float around some of the modeling forums online, and you'll see dozens of what we call dead men's tales, where they're broken and destroyed threads of somebody starting a refit, and then you'll notice that thread is like 5 or 6 years old, and they were like halfway through the model when it stopped, and you probably pretty much know why that happened, because it turned out to be a disaster. They tried that as their first kit, went out and spent about $500 on the model, the electronics, all the aftermarket bells and whistles, and then had never built a model before, and then wondered what happened. Yes, he is, Brian. My wife has the occasion through her business to travel up to Ohio every once in a while. That's where you are, right, Chris? I don't know what part of Ohio. Um, and once in a while they throw in a little deal where she can take somebody with her. I might just take her up on that one of these days and go up there and meet my old buddy Chris. I'd love to meet him in person. We might wind up being in a whole different part of the state, though. I want to say she goes up around I think it's the Columbus area. Chris, how far are you away from there? Yeah, Modeler X. if those Mackenzie paints haven't completely dried up, you just add a little bit more lacquer thinner to them and they'll come right back. Okay, you're by Cleveland. Okay, Chris. I landed at the Cleveland airport once on a business trip in the middle of winter, and I had been out of town for about a month, and I was sicker than a dog, and it was like freezing in that airport. But you know the one thing that cheered me up? I was sitting there, and this is no lie, I was sitting there in the little thing all huddled up, just shivering and like feeling like I wanted to just die or whatever. And here comes down the little, hallway, the little, they got the little kind of golf cart looking things. Guess who was riding on that golf cart? It was Jim Brown, the famous Cleveland Browns running back. He had his little beanie on that he wears and everything. He can't walk very well, so they were carting him around. And I looked right at him, and he looked right at me, but I didn't feel like going up and asking him for his autograph. He didn't look like he was in a good mood, and I didn't feel like it either. That's one thing I remember about that, my trip to Cleveland. A lot of maritime stuff around Cleveland. Cleveland's part of the major Great Lakes shipping area. Yep, all our beaches opened up on the coast down here too, which is cool because my mom has a really nice beach place down there. You guys may have seen a couple of pictures or videos I put up about that. She's got a beautiful house right on the beach in Crystal City, Boise. Beautiful area. It's a rare part of Texas where the beaches are actually that kind of light white sand, and that if you go around Port A and all them places, the sand over there is almost like dirt. It's not very nice. But that area she's got, it's beautiful. Her balcony looks right out over the Gulf of Mexico. Her house is up on those stilts, it's like, I guess it's probably about 20 feet in the air because of the hurricane stuff. Yeah, Chris, I spent a lot of time on the Great Lakes. My dad was a charter boat captain, Superior in Michigan. I want to go to Wonderfest really bad, Eric, but for a lot of different reasons. I'm not interested in the model contest or any of the hubbub about the, supposed celebrity people that show up there or whatever. I would just like to go because I always enjoy going to events where, there's people from the community there. I had a blast meeting you and some of the other guys at the uh, Jersey Fest show. And then, of course, the show we do here every year, there's quite a few people from the community that show up for that. And this was the first time this year I didn't get to go to our show here because we had a wedding to go to. Since we're on a little bit of a personal note here, something I kind of mentioned to you guys in passing about a year and a half ago or so, I mentioned I had some personal stuff in my life that had changed or going on. I guess I could finally talk to you about it. I think everybody's pretty cool with it by this point. When I was born, I was put up for adoption at birth, and I was born up around the Dallas, Texas area. I was adopted at birth. My parents, shortly after then, my dad used to work for Braniff Airlines there, and we moved up to Wisconsin. Then he worked for General Motors for a while. Then he did the fishing boat thing. And so we moved to Minnesota first. We lived in St. Paul. Then we moved up to Wisconsin. Well, my adopted mother, she passed away when I was only 6 years old, so I really never had a mother when I grew up. I don't really even remember her. My dad passed away in '94, and my sister, also who was adopted, when she was about 20 years old, when she graduated out of high school and joined the Air Force, she went out and found out who her parents were. And at that time, they made it really difficult to find out, because apparently in the case of our situation, all the records were sealed and everything. Um, so long story short, my sister used to ask me over the years, aren't you curious about who your parents are and everything? I said, no, I really kind of stayed away from it because, my dad was still around, and I had a lot of respect for my dad. I mean, my dad, I was so close to my dad. Um, you know, I didn't like everything that I do here, like painting and car stuff. I didn't really learn from my dad. I learned that from my grandpa. My dad and I didn't get along when it came to working on cars. Got along great at everything else, but if we tried to work on something together, we had our own way of doing things. And my dad was real practical. He didn't like hot rodding and stuff like that. He thought cars should just run. Like when I came home, got my Chevelle and I took it over to a friend's on a weekend and put a big old cam in it and headers and everything. He brought it back. He's like, "Why does it sound like that? And it sounds rough." And I said, "No, you don't have any idea, Dad. It runs a lot better, especially wide open." "What do you need to run it wide open for?" Stuff like that. Well, anyway, long story short, my dad passed away, so some years went by, and then maybe about 2 years ago, um, my wife kept asking me about taking the DNA test to find out a little bit about maybe my background, like what nationality am I originally, where am I from, stuff like that. So after a long while of kind of him-hawing about it, I took the test and came back, and I think maybe about a month later or so, people started showing up as matches to me on their website. And long story short, I found my birth mother and also my father too. My biological father. They're both still alive. It turns out my mother had me when she was really, really young, and that's why she had to give me up. And all I can tell you guys is that we've started a relationship starting about a year and a half ago. She lives over by kind of over by Galveston, and she is a wonderful lady. I mean, she's an amazing lady, and we've formed this incredible relationship. I have two half sisters who I didn't know I had, and formed a great relationship with them. We go and visit them. It's unbelievable that they still live here in Texas. That we could have been 1,000 miles apart, but I go there, and they're within driving distance. So like on the weekend, my wife and I can hop in the car and drive down and see them. So we stay there for the weekend. We stay at my mom's beach house, and it's just been what I meant to say earlier on was that it's a complete life changer. When my dad finally passed away, he was like besides my adopted sister, all my aunts and uncles, everybody in the entire family, grandparents were gone. I thought, wow, it really kind of sunk in on me, like, wow, I'm alone, finally for the first time I'm alone. I don't have anybody left. I have a few cousins and everything, but they're distant cousins, and I never really had much of a bond with them. But so that was that period of time that you guys kind of saw me disappear off of YouTube for a while. That's what was going on. I was spending a lot of time with that. I mean, it's hard to explain. When it first came to first finding out that you had the opportunity, well, I'm a person who likes to think about like down the road stuff. So I had to sit and think about all the things that go with that, because I'm a person who once I invest in a relationship with somebody, I take it very seriously. That's why my wife and I have been married for 36 years. And I take it very seriously. So I was thinking about, okay, if you're not, I don't want to just go down there and say, hey, great to meet you, you're my mom or whatever. And then, I'll just send her postcards once a year on her birthday or something like that. I wanted to make the full commitment if she wanted to. And it turns out she did. She had told me that like recently, she had been maybe the last 4 or 5 years before this happened, she had been thinking about it more and more and more. And so all I can say, it was worth it. It was not. They all don't work out good. For example, my sister met her. Turned out her father was gone, but her mother was still alive. Well, they didn't get along. You know, it's not a happy ending all the time. But I mean, my mother, it's really weird. My mother is extremely musically inclined. She's she's kind of artistically, there's some artistic stuff on that side of the family that I could never figure out where I got interested in that stuff from, because nobody in my family like I learned how to play music when I was young. I was always interested in being, into music and artwork and stuff like that. And my dad, like I said, he was an ex-Marine, the kind that still wore the, flat top haircut. Nice guy and everything, but he was very practical and didn't believe in any of that kind of stuff. Get yourself a job, earn a living. You can't mess around with that kind of stuff. And I always wondered where I got that from because I never had any. So I don't believe in that thing about, it's just the environment that you grew up in. I believe some of it is hereditary. I really believe that because I can't explain where else I got it from. And I've always been like from the oldest I can remember when I was able to start thinking, I was interested in that stuff. And it turns out she's very into that stuff. She can play the piano awesome. She can sing. She's a really amazing lady. She still works. She's in excellent health. She's a tiny little thing. She's like maybe barely over 5 feet tall. But I haven't made much of a connection with my father. I've reached out to him. He hasn't responded. It's kind of a different thing with guys. The situation that happened at that time, it might not have been a good thing for him, and he just doesn't want to. But I can tell you, I've seen pictures of him, and I look exactly like him. It's really weird. I can't show you the pictures or anything, but it's knowing that he's out there, and he lives in Texas too. He still lives up around Dallas, and he's a famous artist. He actually paints stuff. I don't want to say too specifically, but he's well known, and kind of weird. It just hits you. So I've been waiting a long time before I talked about it to you guys because I wanted to make sure everything was cool with everybody. They know what I do. They think it's pretty cool what I do and everything, and so that was one of the reasons I was gone for a long time. So now you guys know. In fact, that was the only reason. It was a big reason too. That it's literally a life changer. Because now I'm committed to my mom. I mean, if she, you got to think about birthdays, weddings, uh, if someone gets sick, I mean, I'm fully committed like a real family member. I'm not taking it like, oh, hey, nice to know you, but I don't really care what happens to you. So, yeah, it really is. It is definitely a life changer. I don't know if anybody out there's adopted themselves or been through the same experience, but it's hard to describe the feeling that you get when you think I'm all alone, and all of a sudden you realize, no, I'm not. I've got a whole family again. And remembering their birthdays is the worst thing, and you don't want to start off on a bad foot. you know, that's not good. Forget their birthday the first time it comes up. Luckily, I got my wife to help me with all that stuff. Yeah, but my mom, she's just the sweetest little thing. She is just so sweet. Everybody loves her. She's super, I mean, people just adore her that know her, and she's really unique. She's something else. Can't believe, I'll just tell you a quick story. She came here to visit me and my wife last summer, and we have the zoo here in San Antonio. We went in the middle of July, and it's hot. If you live in San Antonio, you know it can get really oppressively hot. And so we had thought, well, we'll take mom to the zoo, and something to do. And I had never seen it myself, living here for 25 or 30 years. And I'm here to tell you that she ran me and my wife into the ground. She's got like these, I call her motor legs. I mean, she just can cruise. I mean, and my wife and I, after a couple hours, were like wanting to sit down with our tongues hanging out on the bench, guzzling water. And my mom's just kind of like, Mom, don't you want to sit down? Like, no, I'm fine. And she's got a strong Texas accent. Yeah, no, I'm fine. And we're like, okay. We were worried that we were gonna, it was gonna be too much for her, like I said, but she ran us totally into the ground. It's amazing what kind of shape she's in for her age. I think she's like 74. She had me when she was really young. Which, like I said, that was another thing. By the time I hit about maybe my mid 40s or so, I kind of gave up on the idea because I thought, well, if my parents were originally, you take the average age of like, say, if they were 25 or so or 30 when they had me, then they were in their 90s or whatever. I'm like, wow, that's chances of them still being around. So, and my father, he looks to be in really good shape too. A picture I have of him from about a year ago, he's riding a bike. He's got a big old one of those Indian, you know, hogs, and he's still really active. I had his picture up out here on the screen looking at it. My wife walked out in the shop. It's a funny story I'll tell you. He has a mustache, and she came out here and she said, when did you get that picture of you on the motorcycle? I said, that's not me. And she goes, the hell it isn't. She had to get right up to the computer before she said, that isn't you, but it is you. And then I told her who it was, and she's just like, holy cow, you know, that's incredible. And my youngest son looks just like me too. My oldest one doesn't look anything like me, but he looks like his mom. But so yeah, it turns out I'm British and Scottish. I'm They traced me back to around the Wales area. Isn't that an island off of Scotland or England? Yeah, they give you a ton of really interesting information on that. It was well worth it. My wife got it for me because it was on sale. They had a little sale going on. I think it cost like $70 for the test. All you do is spit in a cup and send it in, and they tell you who you are. Pretty amazing technology. Well, enough of the sappy stuff, guys. I just want to share that with you because you're all friends of mine, and thought you guys might be curious. Um, I'm going to get to wrapping this up, everybody. It's going on 9:45 here. I'm going to try to keep these shows around an hour, hour and a half. But if we're having fun, we'll just keep going. Um, but I had a great time with you guys tonight. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. I'll come up with something to give this airbrush away. We'll figure something out for that. So next week, we'll be back, and I'll be working on the Battlestar again, showing you the wiring going in, getting those lights put in. I'm still crossing my fingers that everything goes well on that. It's a little bit finicky as far as, you know, fitting into a tight spot, but I think it'll work. And we'll continue on with that. And when we get tired of that one, we'll move on to something else. I want to get to that big B36 kit that's behind me. Good friend here, Rick Berger, that's one of the people that hangs out with us all the time, got that kit for me, and I want to make him happy, and so he can see that getting built. That was a grail kit of mine. I still can't thank you enough for that, Rick. That was awesome. So you guys take care out there. Be safe. I hope things open up for you guys really soon, but don't take any chances. You know, be safe. That's the number one thing. Just try to stay patient, and hopefully you guys are doing well and nobody's having any hardships out there. But again, check out the other YouTube channels if you guys are out there. Try to help out everybody in the community. Appreciate all the new people that tuned in to hang out with us tonight. We'll see you guys maybe this week with a video on the channel, and I'm enjoying watching all the updates on the stuff everybody's working on. We'll see you guys next Saturday night. Happy modeling, guys. Good night.